Alright, this is Tommy with AAA Exterminating Company of Raleigh, heading into Clayton to finish up an encapsulation today. Got a lot of stuff going on, and this was a big job, quite a bit of work, but we're finally getting it done. And I'm going to answer one of the questions we get a lot in the pest control business. But before I do, if you like the content we put out, please like, subscribe, and maybe share with your friends these videos. We're trying to put out good content, good informative stuff, without trying to oversell things and trying to sell you stuff. Trying to just put out good information, and we appreciate you watching.
Let's go!
Okay, so one really controversial question pest control people get a lot, I get a lot doing termite inspections, is the crawl space foundation vents. Should they be opened or should they be closed? Some people say open them in the summertime, close them in the wintertime. Some people say they should always be open, they should always be closed. Is there a right or wrong answer for that? And the simple way to tell you what the right answer there is no one size fits all. There is no cookie cutter thing when it comes to crawl spaces. There are some crawl spaces that's been around for a very, very long time that has, open vents that stay open all the time, and there's not a bit of moisture issues in that house. There's some crawl spaces that have tons of moisture issues. So it's not just a question of should the vents be open or should they be closed. Every crawl space is a little different. Depends on how the house is sitting, what kind of soil you have. If you've got sandier soil, sometimes the crawl space will stay drier. It holds up better. If you've got clay soil, the water will stay up at the surface more, and you have bigger moisture issues in the crawl space. For example, in Fayetteville, houses seem to hold up a little bit better without going overboard with moisture control, whereas in the Raleigh area, north of there, you have a lot of significant moisture issues, especially when it comes to normal crawl spaces with foundation vents. But either way, it can be an issue no matter where you're at, because, and also the advice we used to give people was open them in the summertime, close them in the wintertime. That usually came from the HVAC industry, and they're dead wrong about that. It's the worst thing you can do, because the big problem is warm, moist air getting into the crawl space from the outside. And so that's what we're running into. But you've got a lot of options, and there's a lot of ways you can handle moisture. But the number one thing I can tell you is, if you want to know what to do about crawl space moisture at your home, you need an inspection. You need to find someone you trust, someone who will go give you an honest inspection, maybe take some pictures and some videos for you of your crawl space, and give you a rundown of what's going on in your crawl space. Because I've seen people with severe moisture issues have almost the same house, the neighbor next door not have anything going on. So every crawl space is different. Moisture control, I think, does not need to be a one size fits all. It needs to be custom designed per the house. You may not need an encapsulation. You may not need French drains or sump pumps or any of this kind of stuff. But maybe you do. But you do need someone that knows what they're doing to go up underneath there and determine what's going on and what you might need. Today we're finishing up an encapsulation we did. This is a full encapsulation. In this particular house, we added a partial French drain to catch water from the front of the house, get it to the sump pump, get it out of the crawl space. We also added a sump pump. We also added a dehumidifier. We removed all the insulation from the floor system, and we put a foam board on the walls, a 2.5-inch foam board, which is the equivalent to R10, which is what code calls for. We also, on our encapsulations, we do exhaust fans. This is not required with North Carolina code. However, it eventually will be. It is suggested by EPA, and it's also required by the International Building Code. So it's something that needs to be done. Not many people in this area know that now. But basically the purpose of that is to exhaust some of the air that's in the crawl space, so that you don't get buildup with sewer gases, like radon, for example. If you ask a radon guy in the Raleigh area, they'll tell you it seems like there is a spike in houses that have encapsulations, because they're not exhausting that air, it's getting trapped in there. Now, it is by no means a radon mitigation system to add one of these exhaust fans, but it could help prevent an issue in the future. So that's the way we're doing it. But we're headed to the job now. We're going to be finishing that up today, polishing it all off, make sure everything's right, and I'll do a little bit of video to show you what the Cadillac of moisture control is. Although you may not need this, you may get by with just a vapor barrier. We've got a lot of different options, but let me show you the kind of work we do as far as encapsulations go.
We're going to be doing
some work in this crawl space, but I just wanted to point out something. A professional company came out here and did a sealed crawl space on this home. They ran the plastic up the walls with no inspection gap. They stapled it to the floor joists, but at the same time, they didn't run any plastic up the piers. And as you can see, that plastic right there just moved out, and that plastic right there moved out. They didn't even seal off the vents. They just hung plastic, one big sheet from the ground all the way up the wall. And what we're going to do out here is we're going to first off rip out all this insulation because it's got some mold and fungi growing. We're going to rip out all this insulation. Then we're going to come and do a complete clean of the floor system. And then we're going to rip out all of this plastic and do a proper encapsulation. Running plastic up the piers, sealing off the vents, making sure the plastic is secured to the wall correctly, not using staples and actually using a special material that acts as a super glue for brick walls, but it's stronger than that. Oh, here's a good example. They didn't run any plastic up the piers, and then back here, look at that gap for where the pipes come through, or right over the top of the HVAC box, or back there in that corner, right there where them pipes come through. I mean, this is not professional. Oh, they do have one pier back there with some taped plastic to it, but that's the only thing taped to the piers. This is not how a professional should do their job. This right here is considered lazy. If you pay good money for something like this, you want your money back. All right, so here we are in the back corner of the crawl space, just getting started. Just ripping out insulation, and I just wanted to make a good point. When you're ripping out insulation, really watch out for these water lines. The last thing you want to do is bust a water line when you're pulling out insulation or yanking some of these wires down. But this is simply what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go through the crawl space. I'm just going to pull out all the insulation in the crawl space. Try to get half of it done today, but just get it prepped so that way we can come through the next day or two and just clean the floor system. Just knock down this little bit of fungal growth underneath the crawl space. Get everything taken care of.
All right, this is one we're going to be working on. Big project. We've got the insulation pretty much pulled down. So what's going on with this house? We had some active powder post beetles. Also had some fungal growth, you know, in a few places. And somebody had done a sealed crawl space, I guess you would call it, just completely wrong. They blocked everything off. The problem is, though, they blocked the vents off, but didn't really block them off. And they stapled the plastic directly to the wood. And there's nothing in here to control the environment. There's no, the AC is not coming in here. It's not a conditioned space. And also there's no dehu. And so this is just completely wrong. This is the kind of thing that you get sometimes when you get one of the so-called crawl space experts who have no idea what they're doing. And they're selling these, you know, sealed crawl spaces or whatever they call it. And but what was done here was nothing. It was a vapor barrier that was for some reason stapled to the floor system. So there's no inspection gap. The vapor barrier isn't adhered to the wall. It's not tight. It's not good. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a full end cap on this one. And so once we're done, should look like a totally different place. All right, we're starting to take this thing down. As you can see, you got some termite evidence back here behind it. It's been treated though, so that's good. We're having to rip this down. We're going to have to bring all this down all the way around this place. Kind of the first part of the job is the prep. Got a lot to go. Yeah, that's one bad thing about doing the inspection before this is removed. There's no possible way to see that at all. We've got an area here underneath the front porch. I'm gonna have to block that off when we do the encapsulation. Go ahead and pull some down. It's not up there too bad. It's just up there with staples.
Garage is short ride.
Just getting that black plastic off of the wall makes it actually start to brighten up in here a little bit. That years ago, black was very popular to use for the plastic in the crawl space, but a lot of people just don't like the way it looks. It looks like you're staring into like a hole or something. It's not. It makes it look a little like a cave or something. Once we brighten it up in here, it's going to be a much different environment in here. Okay, and here we're going to use the Boracare with the Moldcare formulation. We're going to spray all the floor joists down, all the wood members of the floor system, floor joists, subfloor, bands, support girders. We need to get good coverage on this wood because it had significant powder post beetle, active powder post beetles, and also active old house borers. A little bit of termites in there too. But with the Moldcare, it's also going to get in. It actually goes into the wood, kills all the mold, kills any of the fungus, and it also gives a long protectant of it. So this is a way to protect the floor system. And this Boracare with the Moldcare actually penetrates inside the wood to give it a long-term protection. In my opinion, this is probably one of the best treatments you can do for mold in a crawl space. Also, it's great though. We mainly use it for wood destroying insects. Great for beetles. Probably the best thing you can do for wood destroying beetles, such as powder post beetles. So that's what we're mainly focusing on here. But this is going to give the crawl space long-term protection. The particular method we're using to apply it here is a paint sprayer. I actually got that tip from one of the forums I'm on, other pest control guys. We've used several different ways to apply. We used to use Timber back in the day. We've done that. We also use a lot of the Boracare, of course. But we've used several different methods. Truck-mounted equipment, big specialty sprayers, even hand pumps. And I think that the paint sprayer actually puts it on better than anything else I've ever used. It's a nice, even coat. This paint sprayer is designed to put on a good coat, like it does paint. And the consistency of Boracare is very, very similar to the consistency of paint. So it's really a great fit. If you're in the exterminating business and you do this kind of work, I highly recommend using a paint sprayer for this. It's changed the way we do business a lot. It's great. It's very helpful. But another thing, whenever we were doing this, we removed all the insulation primarily to do this service here to make sure we're getting the beetles killed. And that went a long way in making the decision to go ahead and encapsulate. Instead of spending the money to put new insulation in, we're moving the insulation to the walls with the Bora Foam. We'll get to that in a little bit. But we're just finishing up coating all the floor system with the Boracare now. And as far as how much to apply, basically with Boracare, with Moldcare, you need to apply it to all the wooden members to the point of wetness. It doesn't have to be to the runoff, but you got to get all the wood wet. We're not using a dye indicator here because I'm doing it myself for the most part. I can see the wood that's getting wet, so we don't really need the indicator dye. All right, setting up Bora Foam. Bora Foam is what we're going to be using for the encapsulation here. It's got built-in termite protection. Very, very good, effective stuff. I'm going to use a Hilti tool. Get it in there, nice and secure. This is definitely the way to do it. All right, nice and secure. Here we go. That section is installed. Okay, and here's a pretty good look at our system here. We've got there at the top, the tape. There's an adhesive put on that tape that connected to the wall. Very, very good stuff. Then we'll peel that off. We'll be able to put the plastic there, and then we'll use mechanical fasteners to keep it there. There's a sump pump hole. What we're doing there, we dug a trench to catch a little bit of water that was ending up at the front there. We're going to take a French drain and take that whole front corner, bring it to that sump pump to get it out of the crawl space. To me, whenever you're doing encapsulation, you really should be doing sump pumps in all of them, because if water does end up getting inside there, you want a way to be able to get it out. We're also going to be blocking off this hole here by the front porch to make sure moist air isn't coming in through there, getting into the crawl space. And we're going to be taking the sump pump out that direction, hole up underneath that the crawl space access door to get the water out of there. And keep it nice and dry. Here comes Ryan with the next piece of foam. All right, we got to measure it and cut it. Ryan's getting trained today on how to do it. See, it actually works better, I think, that it doesn't go all the way through, because it'll keep it held up down there while you're cutting instead of it falling down.
Yeah, I agree.
There you go. Nice, not too bad. Okay, and as you can see here, we've got the plastic on the walls now. And again, I put the plastic over the Bora Foam because we want that Bora Foam to make contact with the wall. It's got termite protection in it. We want it on that foundation wall. So if termites come up there, they're going to hit that Bora Foam. In Raleigh, most of the time, you'll see the foam on the outside of the plastic. If you weren't using Bora Foam, I think that actually is a better way of doing it. But in this case, we want that foam making contact. So got our piers wrapped. We're going to finish doing the wall liner, and then we're going to start working on the floor liner and tie it all together. And once you've got the setup like this, you get everything trimmed out right. It looks great when it's all done. I'm going to kick the dehumidifier on so we can keep it dry as we go and keep going. We got the electricians out here. That's the way you do it. If you're not an electrician, you shouldn't try to do your own electrical work. These guys, there's a few different companies we use. These guys usually do a pretty good job. They showed up pretty good here, got here on time, and they're busy doing it, so pretty happy. Making good progress, still a ways to go. Had to get the electrical for the sump pump and the dehumidifier, also the exhaust fan in the back. So coming along. All right, here's where the HVAC system comes through. Nice and clean lines there, got it perfectly covered. We got part of the floor liner in. We're gonna start taping up, finish up the floor liner, be ready to move on. Working on the back side, got Ryan doing some seam taping. Trying to make sure we get this down perfectly. The work you do now is what's going to matter at the end, how good quality this is going to be. Taking your time, getting everything exactly right, it's important right here. So what do you think about this particular system along with the Bora Foam? You think it works good together?
Yeah,
I think so too. And another thing we got to finish patching it up. One thing you don't see that very often in the encapsulated crawl spaces here in North Carolina is one of these. This is going to be a continuous vent fan that's going to move air out of this crawl space. Now that's not required in North Carolina code, but it is required or suggested for the EPA, because you don't want soil gases building up in the crawl space. So that's the purpose for this. It always runs, it moves air out of this crawl space, so you don't get a buildup of things like radon, stuff like that. This is not a radon mitigation system, let me be clear about that, but this is kind of what the EPA suggests when you're doing an encapsulation, to not allow that to build up in the crawl space, is to move air out of this area. So that's what that's for. It's starting to look like a whole new place. All right, coming to the end here, about to put the last piece of liner on the floor, get everything tidied up. Oh, here at the door, we also need the Bora Foam the door, so you don't have a big temperature difference, don't get a big draft coming in there. We tuck the wall liner and the floor liner up underneath the frame to make it nice and tight. The water heater is going to be getting replaced very soon, so we're going to be doing a little bit different than we usually would. We just told them whenever it gets replaced, call us back out, we'll come patch it up. And so we'll fix that whenever that's all finished after they replace it. And the sump pump's got the pipe coming out right up underneath the crawl space access door into a pop-up, goes down the hill, get the water out of there. Blowing it out, cleaning it up, get everything done, making sure everything's right. How you think, Ryan? Think it's good?
Yeah, I like it, bro.
You want to do a bunch more of these by yourself?
With some help.
With some help, yeah, man. We need about 3 or 4 more guys doing this, don't we?
Yeah, it's not a one-man job.
No. Even got the legendary Patrick Jones here helping us. The living legend. You know we in trouble when we got Patrick Jones when we're working.
Dad, if you pass it to me, I'll blow.
Ryan, I'll blow all this that way. All right, and here's the finished product. We put this rubber mat in front of the crawl space door to stop wear and tear on the floor liner as people are entering and exiting the crawl space. But anyway, an encapsulation like this does a lot to improve the overall environment of the house, the overall comfort of the house. A lot of the air inside your house is shared with the air inside the crawl space. So improving the environment down here improves the overall livability and comfort of your house dramatically. So I would highly recommend at least looking into this, see if you may need it. You may not, but it's definitely a good value, I believe. But we appreciate you watching our videos. Please like, subscribe, and share, and check us out for the next project.